Hey guys, it's Senti Reads, and as you can see by the video title, today I'm going to be attempting to solve a Christmas cozy mystery. Right now there's a booktube trend going on. Maybe I'm a little late to the trend, but the trend is that people are trying to solve Agatha Christie mysteries, but y'all should know by now I'm way too stupid for that. I have way too much ADHD to sit there and read an Agatha Christie book. I have tried, I cannot do it. But I still wanted to participate in the trend because I thought it sounded really fun. So I thought a Christmas cozy mystery was seasonally appropriate and perhaps the correct difficulty level for me. If you've never read or heard of cozy mysteries, I think a good example that people will probably know is Murder, She Wrote. I know that's a TV show, not a book, but it's a good example of a cozy mystery because even though there's murder to solve, the plot isn't overly gruesome or dark, and there's not really explicit sexual content or profanity. The POV character solving the crime isn't a detective and usually works at some kind of cozy job like being a librarian, a florist, a bed and breakfast owner. In this case, I'll talk about our book coming up, but our POV character is a tea shop owner. These books tend to take place in a small town or village. Like in Murder, She Wrote, it took place in Cabot Cove. And overall, these books are about murder, but with chill vibes. So transitioning into the book I read for this video, the book I read is called The Moose Wonderful Time of the Year by H.Y. Hannah. It is the 10th book in the Oxford Tea Room Mystery Series. So here's the cover. That cat is named Muesli, and he's in the book a pretty decent amount. I think it's funny that he's got like this little Christmas cracker with a skull and crossbones on it, but overall you can see the cover is not scary, it is not gruesome, so even though the book is about a murder, it's pretty cozy. So let's get right into the blurb so I can tell you what this book is about. Tea room sleuth Gemma Rose is looking forward to a holiday filled with delicious Yuletide treats, time with friends and family, and maybe even a white Christmas in Oxford. But when she's snowed in at a country manor, she finds herself stumbling on an intriguing murder, complete with a body in the library, a house full of suspects, and a trail of mysterious footprints. Luckily, the nosy old biddies are on hand to help, not to mention her cheeky tabby cat Muesli, added some carol singing, Christmas baking, and flannel underwear, and Gemma's stocking is bursting at the seams. Can she solve this festive whodunit in time to enjoy the most wonderful time of the year? So, with all that intro out of the way, let's see if my dumbass can actually solve a murder. I'm going to be doing regular check-ins with you guys as I read this book. I just finished the first chapter. A lot of people use actual cork boards, but I'm certainly not going to set one up because I don't have one. So I'm going to use Milanote as my cork board. So I wanted to give a quick update after the first chapter. I'll check in whenever something major happens, but for the setup, our main character here is Gemma Rose, who owns the Little Stables Tea Room. There's some details here about her that I don't think is important right now. She's at the train station. She just said goodbye to her boyfriend Devlin, who is going out of town for Christmas to see his mom, who he has a troubled relationship with. And he explicitly said, Gemma, stay out of trouble. Don't find any dead bodies like you did 2 months ago because the police department is short-staffed. So I think that's sort of setting up like, oh, she can't go to the police. She has to solve whatever mystery is about to happen herself. They establish that there's this group of characters named the Old Biddies. This is seriously how they call them, the Old Biddies, who are known to snoop. Apparently they won a talent show, and they have a band of carol singers, and they call themselves the 12 Greys of Christmas. So that's pretty nice. A big detail here that they established is that it's looking like there's going to be a white Christmas in Oxford, and I think that's her being snowed in, and that's how she has to solve the mystery. I don't know his name. He's just train station man. I think he's going to be important later. But as Gemma is leaving after saying goodbye to Devlin, she bumps into this weird man. He's good looking, mid to late 40s. He's very arrogant. He wears fancy clothes, so apparently he comes from money. He maybe touched Gemma's boob. Yeah, that's a real thing that happened. They bumped into each other, and she's like, did he touch my boob? So, guy's a total freaking creep. He has a British accent, but apparently he speaks like someone who had spent a great deal of time in the United States. Which may be important because Gemma has cousins from America, so maybe they know each other. Maybe it's a weird coincidence. I'm tracking every detail I think is important, or that is funny to me. And this is confirmed because he says he doesn't live in England, and this is the first time he's been back in years, so maybe he is from America. We don't know. That's the end of the first chapter, and I will check in with you guys again when something interesting happens. Okay, so I wanted to check in after I finished chapter 3 because a bunch of important things were established. We now have a name for train station man. His name is Ned. Gemma ended up buying Christmas presents for somebody, and like some little kid stole them from her on the street, and Ned got them back. So they went and had tea at Randolph House together, even though Gemma really doesn't want to. She thinks Ned is kind of a creep. Thankfully, Their tea was cut short because Ned got this weird phone call. And he's like acting real sketchy about it. He's like, don't call me at this number. These things take time. And it kind of sounds like he's meant to be in London. He's very sketchy. I don't know what's going on with him. He leaves. And then her mom and a woman named Annabelle Floyd, who I think is going to be an important character later, show up and have tea with her. It's established that Annabelle is running a Christmas tea party at Thirlby Hall. That is her family home. She's like... comes from money. She comes from the Morecombe family, rich family. So I think all this stuff that's going to happen is going to happen at the Christmas party at Thirlby Hall that Gemma is going to because the caterers backed out and Gemma owns the tea room. So she's going to help Annabelle with the catering. So that's how they're all going to go to the party. Something that Gemma noticed about Annabelle is when she showed up for tea, she kind of smelled like alcohol and was kind of stumbling and weak. So something's going on with Annabelle. I have restructured this sheet a little bit to put the less important characters over here. Like Devlin clearly is not the murderer. I made a section for Muesli the cat because Muesli is going to the Christmas party, which is great. Gemma's mom claims that flannel underwear prevents UTIs. That's all you need to know for this part. We'll check in when something else happens. I just started chapter 6 and the murder has not happened yet, but a lot of other things have happened. So I want to give some exposition here. So 2 days pass, nothing happens. We flash forward to the future to go to Thirlby House for the Christmas party. Gemma and her mom show up with all of the treats. They are greeted by Annabelle, who is very excited to see Muesli the cat. They go to the library and learn that most of the decorations are in the library. Annabelle gives some description of her family. There are 5 stockings hanging in the library. Hugh, which is her dad. Edward, which is her brother, who she says is deceased. Annabelle, which is her stocking. Julian, her cousin, and Richard, her husband. They finish setting up for the party when Gemma and Annabelle go into a closet and see Richard, her husband, fucking some lady. They're like full on like boning well, they're not really. They're kind of in an intimate situation. As I said, there's not really like sexual content, but they're doing it. We don't know who Closet Lady is as of right now, but Annabelle is not shocked at all by this infidelity. They finish setting up the party. Annabelle starts taking shots because she's nervous and something's clearly going on with her. A bell rings and Annabelle says it's her dad who's upstairs, so she leaves. Gemma goes into the main hall and sees that the children are arriving to the Christmas party. I'm kind of worried that the murder is going to happen while the children are here, and that kind of is weird to me that there's going to be children in the house when the murder happens. Gemma's mom comes in with the old biddies. Mabel brings her own plum pudding. I bring this up because there's something weird with the plum pudding. I kind of think that somebody's going to be poisoned by it, and that's going to be how the murder happens, but we'll see. Julian, Annabelle's cousin, arrives, and Annabelle comes down to greet him. It's established that Julian actually knows Gemma's dad because her dad is also a professor. I don't know that matters. Annabelle calls everyone to the main hall so that the biddies can carol. It's established it is just after 5 o'clock and the snow is falling harder now, so I think people are going to get snowed in soon, and I hope the kids aren't here during the murder. During this event, Gemma, Annabelle, Evelyn is Gemma's mom, Julian, Richard, Closet Lady, and the new housekeeper are present. I don't know if this new housekeeper is going to be important. It was established that Annabelle's previous housekeeper had just quit and that a new housekeeper had showed up. So maybe she's going to be involved later. And once the biddies finish caroling, Ned, the weird train station guy, shows up. And Gemma's like, whoa, why is he here? And Annabelle seems like fully shocked that he's there. But before anybody can really say anything, Hugh, their father, comes running down the stairs and says that Ned is actually Edward, who is Annabelle's deceased brother, or who Annabelle said was deceased. And Ned is immediately like, hey, Dad, what's up? The son has returned. So apparently Edward and Ned are the same exact person, and Annabelle lied about him being dead. So I've added a couple characters in here. So as of right now, the murder has not happened. I kind of have a feeling that maybe Ned will be murdered because Annabelle said he was already dead. So I think that the story is going to kill Ned and sort of frame Annabelle as the murderer, but Annabelle's going to be a red herring and it's going to be somebody else who did the killing. That's sort of my thoughts right now, but I will check in when something else happens. Okay, so I finished another chapter and the murder still hasn't happened yet, but a lot has happened that I want to catch you up on. So it turns out that Annabelle was not lying about Edward being dead. She actually truly did think Edward was dead and was very surprised when Ned showed up, and the rest of the family was surprised. But their dad is like super excited to see him, which is super sketchy to me because this guy sucks. So let me get back down here into the plot to make sure I'm not missing anything. Another thing that was established was that the closet lady, the one that was sleeping with Richard, Annabelle's husband, is Kelly. Kelly is actually their father's fiance, the old man. So Kelly clearly is, I hate to use the word gold digger because it's misogynist, but that's kind of what she's doing. And Kelly and Edward or Ned, Nedward, I might just call him Nedward, sort of make eyes and flirt at each other. So something's going on there. Everybody goes to the dining room to eat dinner. Not dinner, they're just eating the snacks. Then they go to the library for gifts. This all happens super fast. And thankfully the kids get tired and cranky and leave before the snow gets too bad. So the kids will not be present for the murder. I was worried about that earlier. Evelyn, Gemma's mom leaves. So she's gone now. We obviously knew she wasn't going to be a suspect because she's the main character's mom, probably is a recurring character. She leaves. Gemma was supposed to leave with her because that was her ride home, but she stays because Annabelle offers to let her have her chauffeur drive her home later. Gemma takes the platters for the snacks that she brought to the kitchen to clean them up, where Nedward shows up and literally gropes her, is like grabbing her, trying to kiss her, is super just terrible. He smells like alcohol. He's full on trying to get with her even though she says no multiple times. He literally doesn't care. He's a terrible person. Thankfully, Mrs. Holmes, the new housekeeper, enters and Ned runs off. Gemma, in the heat of the moment, says that she's going to kill Ned for what he did. So this further makes me think that Ned is going to be the one who is killed, and maybe Gemma might be framed for it. Gemma leaves Mrs. Holmes in the kitchen and goes to the drawing room with Annabelle and the biddies. She decides not to tell them what happened with Ned because Annabelle is already very stressed out with seeing her husband cheating on her, and then that Ned is even alive in the first place because she thought she was dead. The weather is now too bad to leave, and Annabelle doesn't really seem to care about that, almost like maybe she planned to have Gemma stay too late so that she would be stuck there. That's just speculation, and now they are all getting ready for dinner. So I will update you. Hopefully the murder is going to happen soon. I'm ready for the murder. Hey guys, I'm back because the murder finally happened, and I was right. The victim is Ned. He was found by Gemma at midnight in the library. His body was slumped in a chair with a stocking. That's a stocking. His stocking that was hanging up before was shoved over his head and he'd been suffocated. Before I get into the motives, I'll catch you up with what happened over dinner. So over dinner, there's a lot of arguing because now that Ned has returned, Hugh, their father, has like just immediately been like, oh yeah, Ned, you're the heir again. So now Julian is not the heir. And he even said that Ned could be the CEO of the company, which was supposed to go to Richard. And Richard is very mad about that. The dinner gets really awkward. Julian and Kelly specifically flirt a lot during the dinner. After dinner is over, the men stay in the dining room for port, and the women go to the drawing room for coffee. The old biddies don't want any coffee, and they go to bed, and they're not really heard from again. I don't know if they're going to show up again in the story, really. Half an hour passes of them all being in the rooms. Gemma finally decides, like, this is awkward. I want to go to bed. So she leaves to go find muesli, and she hears Annabelle and Richard arguing in the library about all of the heir stuff. Gemma goes in to comfort Annabelle, who does not seem to care that this argument happened. It's established that Annabelle and Richard only got married because her father wanted her to marry Richard because he was up and coming in the company, and that their marriage is completely loveless, so that sucks. Gemma finally gets her cat back, goes to sleep, and someone walks past her room, and she hears a young female giggle, so she's assuming it's Kelly. She doesn't know that it's Kelly. And the room next to hers is Julian's, so it's implied that Julian and Kelly were sleeping together at the time. Gemma falls asleep, and when she wakes up, muesli is gone. It's midnight at this point, and she goes to the library where she finds Ned's body. So you can kind of get some of the motives from there, but I have them outlined here. Annabelle right now doesn't really have a super strong motive. She dislikes Ned. She thought he was dead, but she seems really like she wants to please her father, and her father loves Ned, so I don't know that Annabelle would have killed him. Richard explicitly said that he would do anything necessary when he was arguing with Annabelle. He said, I will do anything necessary to remain the CEO. Honestly, that was such a bold line that I think Richard is a red herring. Julian obviously has a motive. He was the heir that was taken away from him and given to Ned. Over dinner, Julian didn't really seem to care that much about being the heir, though. Kelly, who is the closet lady that was sleeping with Richard and is their father's very young fiancé, wants to inherit all of the money. And she thought that by marrying Hugh, she would get his estate when he passed away. It was told to her that is not the case. The estate will go to the heir, who is now Ned. So Kelly has a strong motive to kill Ned. I don't know that Kelly would kill Ned, though. She might want to marry him instead. So Kelly is sort of on the fence about if I think she did it. Mrs. Holmes is still in the house, so she is a suspect. The only motive I can come up with right now is that she saw Ned assault Gemma in the kitchen. So maybe she had some feelings about that. And then the other person here in the house that could have done it is Hugh. The father, he has no motive. He's likely not the killer. He loves Ned. He wanted Ned to be the heir. I really don't think Hugh, and he was an old man, I don't think he would have been strong enough to suffocate Ned. Come to think of it, I don't know that Kelly would have been strong enough to suffocate Ned either, unless maybe he was drunk and passed out or something. Maybe she just seduced him and then strangled him. But that has happened. The murder has happened, and I will update you when some more clues come out. All right, so I have just read the next chapter and wanted to give an updated theory that I have. So I filled out this section here about the murder. I've separated the plot, because this was getting pretty long, into post-murder, and I've added this potential clues section just to keep track of things that happen. So potential clues that happen. Richard, his pants hem is wet, which kind of indicates maybe he was outside in the snow for some reason. When the body was found, Kelly was acting really strange and distant about it, and she's just acting kind of weird. And there was plum pudding found on the floor next to the body. It was pointed out by Annabelle because she was concerned muesli might eat it and it might be poisonous to cats, which I had flagged this plum pudding early as being kind of strange because Annabelle mentioned that the housekeeper made it before she left suddenly. So I still kind of think that maybe Ned ate the poisoned plum pudding and then he was strangled to maybe cover up that he was poisoned because somebody wouldn't assume a woman is strong enough to strangle him, which leads me to say that right now Annabelle is my number one contender for the murderer. She dislikes Ned, and originally I thought that she wouldn't want to kill Ned because that's her father's favorite and she wouldn't want to hurt her dad. But now I think it's the exact opposite. That's still her motive. She wants to be her dad's favorite and knows that Ned is in the way of that. I don't think she cares about Richard's job or anything like that. I think she just cares about being her dad's favorite. Julian was completely hysterical when the body was found. I don't think that he's the killer just because he was so freaked out. I don't know that he was established he's a very good actor. Kelly comes in. Oh, something about Julian. He appears to be naked under his dressing gown, like Gemma can see his bare legs. And then Kelly comes in last, and as I said, she's really distant from the body. So I think that's setting up that Julian and Kelly were potentially sleeping together, which is a potential alibi. However, Kelly or Julian could have set this situation up so that they would have an alibi for the murder and like snuck out and killed him. Hugh, the dad, comes downstairs and Annabelle tells him that Ned is dead. Hugh is sort of stoic about it and says, well, I don't really have anything left now that he's dead. And Annabelle goes, well, what about me? You have me. And he goes, well, what good are you? And Annabelle's kind of upset about that, obviously. When they enter, so Richard had left to call the police, and Miss Holmes, the housekeeper, went to make tea. Richard comes back and says the police aren't coming because the road is blocked. So now everybody is trapped in the house for the night with a murderer. And as I said, I think that murderer right now is Annabelle, but I will update you when some more clues come out. All right, guys, so a ton has happened, and I'm going to do my best to get through it in the most organized fashion I can. Gemma has talked to Hugh, Annabelle, Richard, and Mrs. Holmes about their events of the night. She has not yet spoken to Julian or Kelly. After dinner, the men stay in the dining room, and the women go to the drawing room. However, Hugh says that he called Ned up to his room to speak about a new will because he said Ned would be the new heir. So he quickly had another will drafted to remove Julian and put Ned in power. Richard says that he and Julian were in the dining room while this happened. You'll recall that the biddies did not stay for hot chocolate, so they leave the drawing room. As they leave, Mrs. Holmes calls them up to go to Hugh's room to witness the signing of the new will. And as they're going up, they see Ned leaving and say that he was on his way to the library. They also say that they saw Richard there eavesdropping when they left, and he does admit to eavesdropping when he's confronted about it. Presumably, Richard goes up and is eavesdropping, and Julian, left alone in the dining room, joins Annabelle and Kelly in the drawing room. Julian says he's tired and leaves the room. Kelly is quick to follow. This is still early in the night from what I can tell, and Gemma didn't notice that Julian and Kelly were going to the same room together until 11:30, so they each have some unaccounted time that we will learn about later. Annabelle says that she went to the library, and this is where Richard was. At this point, I'm not sure where Ned is supposed to be because Annabelle and Richard were in the library alone. And remember, Gemma witnessed this argument. Richard then storms off. And according to Richard, when he left the library, he went to the billiards room by himself. He played a game, and then he went outside to smoke a cigar at 11:45, which would account for his wet trousers. Mrs. Holmes corroborates this and says that she saw Richard coming in from outside at about 11:50, holding a cigar. However, there's a missing 20 minutes because Richard says it was 12:10 when he came in. So there's a missing 20 minutes here where he presumably could have killed Ned if he is the killer. Annabelle says that after Richard left, Ned came into the library. So I'm not sure where he was before, but he comes into the library, just like the Biddies said, that's where he was on his way to. Ned and Annabelle have a chat in the library, and she's sort of blushing and acting really weird about what happened. But Annabelle makes a point to say that Ned had the plum pudding with him. So if that plum pudding was poison, he already had it with him when he came into the room. He brought it in there himself. She says this all happened at 11:15. She then says she leaves the library to talk to Mrs. Holmes in the kitchen. However, during Mrs. Holmes' testimony, she did not mention seeing Annabelle. And then Annabelle says she was in bed by 11:30. According to Mrs. Holmes' testimony, Kelly came to wish Hugh good night around 11:30. And Hugh corroborates that this happened. He doesn't say the time, but he says that she asked a lot of questions about Ned, kind of making it seem like she was trying to get with him. So I'm not sure at this point where Kelly and Julian were because we haven't heard their testimony. And then Richard comes in with a cigar. And around 12:30, the body is discovered and Miss Holmes screams. The screams wake up Annabelle. And she says she woke up from bed and ran into Richard on the landing. Richard, however, claims he was in the bedroom. He was getting undressed for bed. He heard the screaming and he rushed out to the landing, which is where Annabelle found him. So Richard is acting really sketchy right now. However, I think he is the red herring. I think he is too obvious. And as of right now, I still think the killer is Annabelle. But let's see how Julian and Kelly tell their parts of the events. All right, I'm back because we have the full timeline now. Gemma has spoken to everyone, so we have Julian and Kelly's whereabouts. I've tried to clean up the timeline a little bit to make it easier to understand, but everybody is saying different things. Julian confirms that at about 11 he went to sleep, and Kelly says that she also left at about 11. Kelly says as she was leaving, she ran into Richard. He was angry and asked her where Annabelle was, and presumably then that's when he went to the library to argue with her. Kelly says she went to her room, painted her nails, and went to sleep. She made no mention of going to say goodnight to Hugh, as Miss Holmes and Hugh said that Kelly did. And she also vehemently denies going to see Julian. So remember, Gemma at about 11:30 says that's when she heard the female giggle and that she presumed it was Kelly going into Julian's room. Both Kelly and Julian deny that this happened, and both Kelly and Julian claim that they were in their rooms at 11 until the murder happened, individually in their own rooms, not together. Somebody is lying. Kelly, as I said, did not mention anything about Hugh, so she is lying about not going to see him, unless she just didn't think to mention it. Annabelle is also acting weird about the timeline. There's a lot of stuff going on here. The only thing I know for sure is that I don't think it's Richard still because, again, he is too likely to be the suspect. But we do have the full timeline now, and both Kelly and Julian say they weren't together. So let's see what else we can discover. Hey guys, so it's been a minute since I've checked in. I believe the place we left off was Kelly's testimony of where she had been that night. However, a ton has happened since then. So immediately after that, Gemma left Kelly and found the Biddies, And the biddies wanted to go outside and look for footprints because according to them, there are always footprints. And guess what? The biddies were right. There were footprints outside the library window that sort of went along the side of the building and led to an ivy-covered wall that if you looked up the ivy, it led into Julian's bedroom. And you'll see here, I say it was confirmed that these were Cole's footprints. Well, who is Cole, you ask? Cole is the chauffeur. So earlier on in the story, when Annabelle offered Gemma to stay and that her chauffeur would take her home later, she was referring to Cole. And at the time, I did not note him in the character list. However, he turns out to be a very important character. So the biddies find the footprints and they take a cast of the footprints with syrup. At this point, they don't know it's Cole. I'll get into that. So they get a cast of the footprints and the police show up. So everybody goes home. Gemma and the biddies get into the car with Cole. And so that's sort of your first really big introduction to him. And he says he was late picking them up because he could not find antifreeze to put into the car, which further leads me to believe that the plum pudding was poisoned with antifreeze. There's some more evidence for that I'll get into later. While they're in the car, Gemma notices that Cole has sort of a high-pitched female laugh, which I'll tie into this later. So she goes home and she meets with her mom to make a mincemeat pie. And while they're doing that, her mom says that before she left the party, she heard Ned and Julian arguing. And what they were arguing about is Ned called Julian bent. And her mom didn't realize that that is slang for gay. So at this point, you were left with the thought that maybe Julian killed Ned to hide the fact that he was gay and that Ned was going to out him. So that leads into the footprints being Cole's. Gemma sort of remembers that Cole had this high-pitched giggle and that it was not Kelly going to meet Julian, it was Cole. So Cole climbed up the ivy. Well, he went in through the house to rendezvous with Julian, and Julian dared him to leave through the ivy. So when they finished their rendezvous, Cole went to climb out the window. He climbed down the ivy, and that's when he saw... so I added him to the timeline. Let's go down to the timeline. So Cole leaves, and he says as he climbs down, he sees Richard start to come around the corner. So Cole hides behind a bush, and Richard smokes for about 10 minutes before leaving. Then Cole leaves, and as he's leaving, Cole looks into the library window, and he sees that Ned is alive, and he's with Annabelle. So Annabelle was lying about going to bed at 11:30 because Cole clearly saw Ned and Annabelle fighting in the library after she said she was asleep. And then the events happen as usual. Richard goes in at the time. This disputed time is still, there's some question here as to why Miss Holmes and Richard are saying different times. That could have just been a red herring to throw you off and think that Richard is lying and he was the one who did the killing. As of right now, I still think that Annabelle was the one who did it, especially because she was the one who was last with Ned. And Cole says that Ned was clearly intoxicated, or he seemed like something was wrong with him. And Gemma says, oh, I don't think he was intoxicated. He had already been drinking a lot and he seemed fine, like he seemed like somebody who could hold his alcohol. She thinks it's more likely that he was drugged with the antifreeze, and that's what I believe. But Gemma was sort of leading it to think that she had poisoned the wine they were drinking, that Annabelle maybe had poisoned the wine. I think it was the plum pudding that was poisoned, and I think it's been poisoned this whole time, and that Annabelle had always thought to kill him. We'll see. I still think Annabelle is the murderer. So I pretty much think Julian is out. Cole, he was there, he's out. Richard, I think he's out. So the only suspects I have left are Mrs. Holmes, Annabelle, and Kelly. Because if Kelly was not in Julian's room, where was she? There's nobody to confirm that she was in her room by herself, so she could have played some kind of role in this, especially because there is this weird connection with her that came up. So Julian, I believe it was Julian, said that there was a scandal where Ned, before he left for America, he was engaged to marry somebody named Jessica Smith, but he broke off that engagement, stole a bunch of money from his family, and fled to America. So this Jessica Smith is maybe like a spurned woman and could have some kind of motive in this killing. And the connection comes in here that Kelly herself admitted that she was a secretary for Neville Smith, which I'm assuming is Jessica Smith's father. I'm not sure. But there is a potential motive here with Kelly that maybe she is getting revenge for Jessica by killing Ned. And Kelly's whereabouts are currently not well known because nobody knew if she was in her room or not. So Kelly is another suspect. At this point, it's Kelly or Annabelle, and I'm not sure which one it is. I still strongly believe it's Annabelle, but I will get into that later when some more stuff happens. From my last check-in, what's happened is that Gemma had a Christmas party with her mom, and the American cousins came over, and it was just absolute chaos. It was like a lot of pages that I pretty much skimmed over of that party because none of it was relevant until the biddies show up to Carol, and they come inside and tell Gemma that they wish they had made Cole a sweater. They wish they had knitted him one because he was abandoned by his father. And Gemma was like, hold on, wait, what? And they go, oh, he was telling us all this background in the car. You weren't listening when he drove us home? Something I had in my notes, but I forgot to mention earlier, is that Julian claims that Ned impregnated someone when Ned was 17, and he then abandoned that child. And now it's coming out that the biddies know that Cole was abandoned by his father. And Gemma immediately pulls that idea and is like, oh shit, what if Cole is the abandoned kid? Cole is the one who told us about the antifreeze. Cole is the one who said he saw Ned with Annabelle. So Cole must be the murderer. So she and all the biddies get in the car and they're on their way to the estate right now. They're pretty much set that Cole is the murderer, which would make sense that it's not Annabelle because Cole is the one who said that Annabelle was with Ned. And Annabelle said she was in bed herself. I still don't know where Kelly comes into this because we did get another connection here that they were looking at a newspaper, and after Ned's murder, Neville Smith told reporters that Ned had it coming to him, which led Gemma to believe that maybe Kelly did have some kind of involvement because she was the secretary. But we've got no further information on that. At this point, I think I've moved away from Annabelle being the killer. I think it was all set up so that when Cole set her up, the audience would already, or the reader would already believe that. So at this point, I don't think it's Annabelle. I almost wonder if Cole and Kelly were working together or something, but I have given up on Annabelle at this point as being the killer. They seem pretty sure it's Cole, but I feel another last minute twist coming. I will check up with you when that happens. Hey guys, this is the final check-in before the murderer is revealed. We've had a couple revelations. So basically, Gemma showed up to the manor, burst in, and found the police talking to Hugh and said, oh my god, you have to listen to me. I think the murderer is Cole. And the police officer was like, oh no, it absolutely isn't. And he was like, no way, that's not true. Because the person that Ned got pregnant, her name was Helen, she had an abortion. So that could not possibly be Cole. And Cole has no relation to Ned. So that was sort of the one connection that led Gemma to believe that Cole was involved. And that's not the case. Cole is not involved, as far as I'm aware. I didn't really think it was him. This detail, and while they're talking to Hugh, another detail comes up. I had noted this detail earlier, but I didn't mention it in one of my check-ins. The will that was rewritten is kept in a safe behind a painting on the wall. And while Gemma is in the room talking to them, she notices that the painting is askew, and she says, oh, somebody must have tried to get in. And that's when Hugh randomly remembers, even though Hugh already gave his account of the night, now Hugh suddenly remembers. I added it to the timeline. After midnight, Hugh is half awake and he hears somebody trying to get into his safe, but I guess for whatever reason he doesn't check who it is. And there is evidence that they did fully get into the safe because the will was not in the same place. They didn't take the will, but they did read it and move it. And it was established that Hugh is the only one who knows the combination to this safe. So I'm not sure who that could have been. It could have been Kelly because her whereabouts were not accounted for. She has no alibi that anybody can say. It can also be Mrs. Holmes. She's sort of a missing link from all of this that I haven't really mentioned, but Mrs. Holmes might actually be the killer because she also didn't really have an alibi at the time the killing would have happened. She says she was in the kitchen cleaning until midnight, and there's various things she's seen. And Miss Holmes said she saw that Richard came in around 11:50 holding the cigar. Richard says it was 12:10. I'm more likely to believe Richard at this point because I don't think he's the killer, especially because now I know that Cole was telling the truth about Annabelle. Well, I don't know this for sure, but I'm speculating that Cole was telling the truth that when he looked into the window, he saw Ned alive with Annabelle and that they were fighting. I don't know if that meant Annabelle led to his killing or what, but I believe that Richard was not the one who did this killing because he was not in the area at the time, is what I'm trying to get at. So that's all to say, I think Richard is telling the truth about this time, and Mrs. Holmes is the one who is lying about this time discrepancy, and she is the one who has
the space of time where she could have been the one who killed Ned. And the reason why I say that is because maybe she also has a connection with this Smith family stuff, wherever that is in here. Maybe she also has a connection and we just haven't been told about it. She did randomly, let me go to her profile. Mrs. Sims suddenly quit and Mrs. Holmes applied really out of nowhere. So she could have put herself in that situation to do the murder. So Mrs. Holmes is a suspect. Kelly is still a suspect for me. Annabelle is still a suspect for me. I'm not sure which of the three I think did it. I keep changing my mind. But another reason why I think it's Mrs. Holmes is after Gemma talked to the police, she sort of left and was like, wow, I feel so stupid. I said it was Cole and they had all this evidence it wasn't him. She runs into Mrs. Holmes and Mrs. Holmes says, oh, I'm sorry for what I told the police. And Gemma goes, what do you mean? What did you tell the police? And remember, guys, when I told you earlier that when Mrs. Holmes walked in on Ned basically assaulting Gemma in the kitchen, Ned got scared off and Gemma, in a moment of rage, said, oh, I will kill him. Well, Mrs. Holmes did tell the police that Gemma said that. And so Gemma became a suspect, especially because Gemma was the one who found the body. So I wonder if that was Mrs. Holmes putting the suspicion on Gemma just to get the suspicion off of her. So, you know what? Okay, guys, if I have to put right now my firm guess of Mrs. Holmes, Kelly, or Annabelle, I'm going to say Mrs. Holmes. I see this as a last-minute plot twist that they kind of set up that Annabelle might have did it to sort of get you to believe she did. As I said, with the stuff with Cole, I think the narrative was trying to get you to believe Annabelle did it to pull a last-minute plot twist of Mrs. Holmes doing it. And she was, well, that doesn't explain the poisoned pudding, because I do believe the pudding is poisoned. Maybe she served a different pudding, because Mrs. Holmes is the housekeeper. She could have served whatever pudding. She didn't have to serve the previous pudding that Annabelle would have been aware of. So you know what? For sure, I'm going to say Mrs. Holmes is the killer, and I will update you at the end of the book to let you know if I was right. Okay, guys, are you ready for the verdict? So in classic cozy mystery fashion, Gemma gathers everyone up in one room and gives a big monologue about who the killer is and how she knew. So first of all, she knew it had to be someone in the house because of the storm. Nobody could come or go, so it had to be somebody there. Her first suspect was Richard because of his inconsistent timeline and the fact that he had a motive because he was going to be losing his CEO position. So I had previously mentioned that somebody was trying to get into the safe, and that was actually Richard. He was the one trying to get the will out of the safe, and the reason why he was able to get the combination was because it was Ned's birthday. So he came in from smoking the cigar, and instead of going to his room like he said he did, he actually went and tried to get the will out of the safe. So that's pretty much his alibi. Richard is not the killer. Gemma then moves on to reveal it can't be Julian because he was with Cole, and in the process totally outs him as gay, which I was really uncomfortable with. I did not think that was her right to do. I know she was saying that he was not a murderer, and maybe she thought outing him was better than him being a killer, but suspicion really wasn't on Julian anyway, so I really thought it was out of line to out him. But Julian plays this off really well, and he's like, no, thanks for outing me. I wish I had told them anyway, which I just have really big problems with that. Anyway, moving on. Gemma says her next suspect was Kelly, because Kelly had a motive based on Ned being the heir. She would be written out of the will and not get anything. They don't mention the secretary thing, again, about working with the Smiths, the family that Ned spurned. So I guess that was just a red herring clue to make you look at Kelly. I didn't think she was a very convincing suspect because she was in the book so little. Anyway, Gemma points out that Kelly is too petite to overpower Ned, so Ned must have been drugged, and it must have been the pudding or the port. So that was something I was right from the beginning, that as soon as I saw the part about the plum pudding, I immediately thought something was up with it. It was just weirdly highlighted. So that's a prediction I got correct. That transitions Gemma into saying that Annabelle could have done it because she was the one who took the antifreeze, and Annabelle admits that she took the antifreeze to use on the garden path, and she was with Ned right before the murder. Annabelle says that Ned was taunting her about her dad not really liking her, so that is the argument that Cole saw them having through the window. She stormed out, said goodnight to Mrs. Holmes, and then went to bed. That Gemma says, oh, You went and said goodnight to Mrs. Holmes to give yourself an alibi, but then you could have snuck back into the library and killed Ned when he was weakened. Gemma says, I know it wasn't you, Annabelle, because it was Mrs. Holmes. What? So I was right, but I did not come to the same conclusion. I just had a gut feeling that it was Mrs. Holmes, just because, as I said, the narrative was pushing too much that it was Annabelle, so I knew it wasn't going to be her just based on how much it was pushing it. She was an early prediction for me, but as I said, that's because of how hard the narrative was pushing it was her. And as soon as I realized that, I knew it couldn't be, because that's not a plot twist. And these things always have plot twists. Kelly didn't seem like a satisfying enough twist because, as I said, she was hardly in this book. So I thought, okay, Mrs. Holmes. And the reasoning why is because the person who Ned had a child with, or she had an abortion, the person he impregnated was named Helen. And apparently a nickname for Helen in Britain is Nell. And that is Ellen Holmes. They are the same person. And Ellen straight up admits to it in front of everybody, in front of the police. She's like, yep, it was me. And I did it for revenge because Ned led me on. He got me pregnant. I had the abortion. It gave me an infection. It left scar tissue. It left me infertile. She says, quite literally, here's a quote, what man would want a barren woman like me? And before I get into the rest of the clues as to how Gemma worked this out, this is another thing that absolutely infuriates me. I was really enjoying this book. I really thought this was a well-crafted mystery, but then there are these details like this and the outing that really bother me. I really hate when a woman is a villain because of pregnancy loss or because of infertility or anything relating to that being her motive for being a villain, because it sort of points out that a woman's purpose is to have children, and if they cannot have children, they sort of go crazy and it makes them evil. I feel like this is villainizing abortion. That is a legitimate medical procedure for people who need that. I don't know that abortions commonly make people infertile, so that feels like some misinformation. So I just have to say, I really resent that this is Ellen's motive for killing Ned. And I was really enjoying this book, and I just think this plot point is disgusting. More evidence about why Gemma knew it was Ellen. So there was all this confliction, and I had pointed this out too. There's this confliction in the timeline of Ellen or Mrs. Holmes saying that Richard came in at a certain time and Richard saying he came in later. I had assumed that Ellen was, or Mrs. Holmes, Ellen, they're the same person, was the killer because she was the one lying about the timeline, not Richard. Turns out they weren't actually lying. It was actually 11:50 when Richard came in. And Ellen thought it was 12:10 because she was viewing a reflection of the clock in the mirror above the mantle. And that is something she could only do if she was at the library door. That is the only view she would have saw that, which I thought this kind of came out of nowhere. They actually did mention this clock very specifically earlier as being Annabelle's clock that she chose because she wanted to put her personality into the house. So they did put a focal point on this clock, but I didn't think it would come up again in this way. So I thought this clue kind of came out of nowhere, and I don't know how I was supposed to guess it. But that explains the inconsistency in the timeline that was happening earlier. And finally, another detail that Gemma points out, when Gemma was assaulted by Ned in the kitchen, Mrs. Holmes had made reference to the fact that Gemma said she had a boyfriend and Ned should have stopped at that point. However, Gemma remembers that she never told Mrs. Holmes that she had a boyfriend, so how would she know that? And there was also a throwaway line earlier I should have mentioned. I thought it was important. I thought they were, I don't know. A throwaway line earlier is that Gemma said she recognized Mrs. Holmes, and that is because Mrs. Holmes was the waitress at the tea party. She was the one who spilled tea on Ned because she was so surprised to see him. And because she did that, when Annabelle came, that's when she overheard that the position to be a housekeeper was open. And I think I flagged that earlier as being weird that she just suddenly applied to this job out of nowhere. So that's how she learned about the job. Ellen used the antifreeze that Annabelle brought in from the garage. So that's how it happened. Mrs. Holmes was the murderer the whole time. So I think after Annabelle left the library and went and said goodnight to Mrs. Holmes, that's when Mrs. Holmes came to the library and probably at that point finished off Ned because he would have already been poisoned from either the pudding or the port. And that was the final blow. She went in and killed him. all because she cannot have babies anymore. I did really enjoy this mystery. I thought there was a lot of layers. I wrote so many notes, as you can see. There were so many details to keep track of, so many things. I thought it was a good amount of suspects. I thought the pacing was really good as to when you get information, so you can sort of build your timeline and build your story. However, I did not figure out the murderer for the same reasons that the book was leading me to believe. I didn't really get the clues that the book was giving me. I sort of went off gut feeling of knowing how mysteries are structured and how mysteries are written. That's how I came to my conclusion, because honestly, I think the clues that point towards Mrs. Holmes are a little far-fetched. Like the clock, I don't know how I was supposed to figure that out. And then again, her motive sort of came out of nowhere for me. I really, really don't like her motive. I don't think that motive is perpetuating anything kind about women. I will say that. Other things I did not like about the book is the outing of Julian as gay. I wish that Gemma had not publicly outed him, because that is not a polite, not even polite. It's a blatantly unsafe thing to do to someone. So I really dislike that happened. And so another thing I didn't like about the book, and this is because it is a cozy mystery, I should have known this, is that there were parts that were too cozy that I just didn't talk to you guys about. So there were a lot of pages of her and her mom making that mincemeat pie. When she goes to the Christmas party at her mom's house and her cousins come over, it was like 15 pages of this Christmas party before anything happened. And then at the end, after they have gotten Mrs. Holmes arrested, there's another like 15 or 20 pages of like another Christmas party. And like Devlin, her boyfriend, secretly comes home, and it's like so many pages of this wacky party. And at that point, I'd completely checked out, because I already knew who the murderer was, and that is why I read the book. So as soon as the murderer was revealed, I did not want to read 20 more pages of parties and stuff. But I'm not going to judge that too hard, because this is a cozy mystery that's par for the course. And ultimately, I did have a good experience trying to solve it. There were just a couple political, I guess, things that I really did not like about this book that sort of crossed the line for me. But this was a fun experience, and I certainly look forward to solving a mystery again. I hope you all have a happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, and I will see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.